Hey everyone, it's Vincent again with my co-host Amelia. I'm proud to be discussing in today's video podcast the funeral crowning ceremony. Have you heard of it? It's a tradition usually found in the African American homegoing service, so we'll get into it. But first, welcome to the Funeral Channel Network, brought to you by the Funeral Program site. So, Amelia, how many funeral crownings have you been to?
Hey, Vincent. I've been to quite a few of them, and I really think they are a powerful part of any homegoing service.
Yeah, funeral crowning is a phrase that can sound unfamiliar at first, but points to a very old human impulse to honor someone at the end of life with a visible sign of dignity, completion, love, and remembrance. Depending on the culture or religious setting, funeral crowning may refer to placing a crown, wreath, garland, band, or other symbolic adornment on or near the deceased. In some communities, it is connected with faith and prayer. In others, it is more closely tied to honor, beauty, and farewell. So rather than treating it as one single practice with one single meaning everywhere, we will explore the themes that often stand behind it.
That distinction matters because funeral customs are deeply local. Families may recognize a version of crowning from church rites, ancestral traditions, regional burial practices, or even from the language of memorial tributes. What connects these different forms is symbolism. A crown is rarely just decoration. It can represent victory, completion, purity, sacrifice, honor, or the idea that a life has reached its final earthly chapter. At a funeral, where words often feel inadequate, a physical symbol can speak gently. It can say, "This person mattered." It can say, "Their life is not being reduced to their death." It can say, "We send them forward with reverence."
Let us begin with the basic image of a crown. In ordinary life, crowns are associated with dignity, rank, achievement, celebration, and recognition. A crown sits at the head, the part of the body most associated with identity, thought, expression, and presence. At a funeral, that placement can become especially powerful. The person can no longer speak, but the crown becomes a final sign placed by the living. It is a gesture of care. It is also a way of framing death not only as loss, but as a solemn moment of transition. The crown may suggest that the person is being honored, not forgotten, and that their life has a meaning that continues in memory.
In many religious interpretations, crowning can also carry the idea of spiritual completion. The language of a crown appears in many spiritual and moral traditions as a metaphor for reward, endurance, or faithful struggle. A person reaches the end of life, and the community gathers to acknowledge that their earthly journey is complete. The crown can symbolize that completion. It does not erase grief, and it does not pretend that death is easy. Instead, it gives grief a ritual form. It allows mourners to place sorrow inside a pattern of reverence, prayer, and hope. That is one of the deepest functions of funeral ritual in general.
There is also an important difference between crowning as a physical act and crowning as a symbolic phrase. Sometimes people may speak of a funeral as a crowning moment of remembrance, meaning that the service gathers the final public expressions of love and respect. Other times there may be an actual object, a floral crown, a woven wreath, a ceremonial band, or another item chosen by tradition or family preference. Either way, the core idea is similar. The ceremony gives visible form to invisible feelings. Love, respect, faith, memory, gratitude, and grief become something the community can see, touch, carry, or place.
That visible quality is especially important at funerals because mourning can feel disorienting. A death changes the world, but at first the change can be hard to comprehend. Rituals slow time down. They give people something to do when there is nothing that can be fixed. A crown, wreath, or garland may be prepared, blessed, carried, or placed. Each action gives the mourners a role. The ritual says, "We cannot undo the death, but we can honor the life. We can accompany this person with care. We can mark this ending with beauty instead of leaving it only to silence."
The shape of a crown or wreath adds another layer. A circular form often suggests wholeness, continuity, and the cycle of life. It has no obvious beginning or end. When used in memorial settings, that shape can point toward memory that continues, love that does not simply stop, or a spiritual hope that life is held within a larger mystery. This does not mean every family interprets the circle in exactly the same way. Some may see it through a religious lens, others through a cultural or emotional one. But the circular form has long been suited to funeral symbolism because it can hold both ending and continuity at once.
Materials matter too. Flowers, leaves, ribbons, paper, cloth, metal, or other simple materials can all change the tone of the crown. Flowers often suggest beauty, tenderness, and the fragility of life. Greenery can suggest endurance, freshness, or renewal. White materials may be associated in some settings with purity, peace, or solemnity. Gold tones may suggest honor, sacredness, or dignity. Handmade materials may emphasize family love and personal care. Again, there is no single universal code, but the choice of material usually communicates something. Even when no one explains it aloud, mourners tend to feel the difference between a formal ceremonial crown and a lovingly handmade wreath.
One reason funeral crowning can feel moving is that it combines humility and honor. Funerals remind everyone of human vulnerability. The body is still. The voice is gone. The mourners are confronted with mortality. Yet the crown introduces another note: dignity. It insists that vulnerability does not cancel worth. The person is not merely a body to be buried or cremated. They are a life to be remembered. They are someone who loved, struggled, contributed, failed, learned, endured, and belonged. The crown becomes a quiet protest against the idea that death makes a life insignificant.
There is also a communal dimension. A crown is often not only for the deceased, but for the people who remain. It helps the family and community express a shared judgment. This person is worthy of honor. That shared expression can be comforting. Grief can isolate people, but ritual gathers them. When everyone sees the same symbol, hears the same prayers or words, and participates in the same farewell, they are reminded that mourning is not only private, it is also relational. The crown becomes a focal point around which stories, tears, gratitude, and silence can gather.
In some faith-centered settings, funeral crowning may be connected with the hope that death is not the final word. The crown can suggest victory, not in a triumphant or simplistic sense, but in the sense of endurance through suffering and completion of earthly life. It may also be connected with the idea that the deceased is entrusted to divine mercy. For believers, that can be profoundly consoling. For people outside that faith, the symbolism may still be understandable as a gesture of blessing. It says, may this person be received with peace. May their journey be honored. May their memory be held with reverence.
It is worth saying that funeral crowning should not be treated as a decorative trend detached from its roots. When a practice comes from a specific religious or cultural tradition, it deserves respect. The right form may depend on clergy, elders, family custom, or community expectations. In some places, the crown or band may be prepared in a particular way. In others, flowers or wreaths may be used more freely. The respectful approach is to ask what the tradition means before adapting it. Funeral symbols are powerful because they carry memory, and memory deserves care.
That is especially true when a family is planning a service and wondering whether to include some form of crowning. The first question is not only, would this look beautiful? The deeper question is, would this be meaningful and appropriate for this person and this community? If the deceased belonged to a religious tradition, the family may want to consult the relevant leader or knowledgeable relatives. If the practice is cultural, they may want to ask elders about the proper form. If it is a personal memorial gesture, they may want to choose materials, colors, and words that reflect the person honestly.
Honesty is key. Funeral symbols should not force a life into an image that does not fit. A crown can represent honor, but honor does not require perfection. In fact, One of the most compassionate interpretations of funeral crowning is that it honors the whole human journey, the strength and the weakness, the joy and the hardship, the gifts and the unfinished questions. The crown is not a claim that someone was flawless. It is a sign that their life was worthy of tenderness and remembrance. That kind of honor can be truthful without being exaggerated.
There is also a psychological side to this. People often need a final image to carry with them. Funerals create memories that can last for years. A gentle symbol at the farewell can become part of how grief is later remembered. A family member may recall the crown of flowers, the careful placement, the stillness of the room, or the sense that the deceased was surrounded by respect. Those memories do not remove pain, but they can soften it. They can help mourners feel that the goodbye was not chaotic or empty, but dignified and loving.
At the same time, not every family will want or need funeral crowning. Some traditions do not use it. Some people prefer simplicity. Some communities express honor through spoken eulogies, music, candles, prayers, garments, photographs, or flowers placed elsewhere. That is completely valid. The meaning of a funeral does not depend on one object. Crowning is one possible ritual language among many. Its value lies in whether it truly serves the mourning community and reflects the person being remembered. A simple service with heartfelt words can be just as meaningful as a visually elaborate ceremony.
If crowning is included, its timing can vary. It might happen before the public viewing, during a religious rite, as part of a family farewell, or near the closing of the ceremony. The timing affects the meaning. When done early, it can frame the entire service with honor. When done near the end, it can feel like a final act of blessing. If it is done privately, it may feel intimate and tender. If it is done publicly, it may become a shared communal acknowledgement. The best timing depends on the tradition and on what the family can bear emotionally.
The words spoken around the act also matter. Sometimes no words are needed. Silence can be powerful, but if words are used, they should be simple and sincere. They might express gratitude for the life lived, peace for the person who has died, and comfort for those who mourn. In faith settings, the words may be prayers. In secular settings, they may be a brief remembrance. The point is not to explain every symbol in a long speech. The point is to let the symbol breathe. A crown at a funeral often speaks best when surrounded by quiet reverence.
One misconception is that a crown at a funeral must imply royalty, status, or social rank. In the funeral context, the meaning is usually broader and more human. It can honor the dignity that belongs to a person simply because they lived, loved, and were loved. It can recognize the moral weight of a life, not worldly power. In that sense, funeral crowning can be deeply democratic. It says that every life can be received with solemn honor. The crown is not about placing one person above others. It is about refusing to let death strip away their personhood.
Another misconception is that symbolism is only meaningful if everyone understands it intellectually. In reality, symbols often work before explanation. A mourner may not know the full history of a practice, but they may still feel its tenderness. They see beauty placed where there is sorrow. They see care given where there is helplessness. They see a final gesture made with intention. Later, learning the meaning can deepen the experience, but the emotional language is already present. That is why funeral rituals have survived across generations. They speak to the heart as much as to the mind.
We should also mention the relationship between crowning and memory. A crown or wreath may be temporary, especially if made from flowers or greenery. It may fade quickly. That impermanence can be part of the symbolism. The object is beautiful, but it does not last forever. In that way, it mirrors human life. Yet the memory of the gesture can last much longer than the object itself. The crown may be removed, buried, preserved, photographed, or simply remembered, depending on custom. Its physical life may be brief, but its emotional meaning may remain.
For people creating a personal memorial, the symbolism can be shaped with care. A crown of garden flowers might honor someone who loved growing things. A simple woven wreath might suit a person known for humility. A band with meaningful colors might reflect family heritage. A crown placed beside a photograph rather than on the body might feel more comfortable in some settings. The important thing is not extravagance. The important thing is coherence. The symbol should feel connected to the life being remembered, the beliefs of the family, and the tone of the farewell.
There is a beautiful tension in funeral crowning between grief and beauty. Some people feel uneasy about beauty at funerals, as if it might deny the pain. But beauty does not have to deny grief. It can accompany it. A carefully chosen crown or wreath does not say, "This is not sad." It says, "Even here, love is present. Even here, we can offer something tender. Even here, the person is worthy of care." In many ways, funeral beauty is not about decoration. It is about mercy. It gives sorrow a form that mourners can survive.
And that brings us to the larger purpose of funeral traditions. They help communities do what is emotionally impossible to do alone. They help us face death, honor life, support one another, and begin the long work of remembering. Funeral crowning is one expression of that purpose. Whether understood as a spiritual sign, a cultural custom, a floral tribute, or a symbolic act of dignity, it gathers many meanings into one visible gesture. It can speak of completion, honor, hope, continuity, and love. It can hold silence when words fail.
So, if someone asks, what does funeral crowning mean? The careful answer is that it depends on the tradition, but its recurring themes are clear. It is a sign of honor for the deceased. It may symbolize the completion of life, the dignity of the person, spiritual hope, the victory of endurance, or the continuing circle of memory and love. It can be public or private, religious or personal, simple or elaborate. Its power comes from intention. A crown at a funeral is not merely an object. It is a final gesture of recognition.
And perhaps that is why the image stays with people. At the end of a life, when everything feels fragile, the mourners offer a symbol of dignity. They crown not power, but personhood. They crown not perfection, but a life that mattered. They crown not an ending only, but the love that continues after the ending. In that sense, funeral crowning reminds us of something deeply human. When someone dies, we still have the ability to honor, to bless, to remember, and to surround the final farewell with meaning.
We'll have to wrap it up for this episode of today's video podcast. I hope you found this topic of interest, and if so, smash that like and subscribe to join us for future topics like this.
Yes. We also love hearing your comments. So drop us a line below if there's something you'd like to see us cover in future podcasts. Or even if you just have a quick question on today's topic. Be blessed and see you all again next time.